Hey, this is Cap, and you're watching Thorin, the only man besides Richard Lewis who somehow found a way to get both League of Legends and Dota Redditors to hate him.
News has come out that for the Season 8 World Championship in League of Legends, Riot Games will be hosting the English language broadcast, the one you're traditionally used to watching if you're in the West, remotely from Los Angeles up until the end of the semi-finals, and they will only fly the whole broadcast team out for whoever does the final. For the final itself, obviously this World Championship takes place in South Korea, and so this means the majority of the tournament, the play-ins, the group stage, the quarterfinals, the semi-finals, everything except the grand final itself will be broadcast remotely. The talent, the commentators, the analysts, the host will all be in Los Angeles with the exception of the interviewers who will be on site to do interviews and who will rotate. Now, first and foremost, this means that the talent won't be as involved with the event as they would if they were on site. Now, I noticed that to counteract this, it's already been pointed out that apparently they're going to pipe the audience recording into the ears of the casters so the casters can hear the crowd and somehow react to them. I can tell you right now, as someone who's commentated events and who's been an analyst at events, that ain't the same. Sure, you can hear, oh, the crowd is popping off over that. Oh, the crowd like that. Oh, they're booing this person. You can hear all that. It ain't the same as feeling it. It ain't the same as being there. I know that in CSGO, where we have this big open circuit with many events that are in stadiums that are crowd events, the CSGO talent get really mad when they're at events, but we do the casting with a desk that isn't in front of the crowd or isn't where the crowd is or is in some backstage area, or we have the desk for the analysis in some studio nearby the event. They hate that. They always say it doesn't feel the same. I don't feel as connected to the crowd. The commentators especially say that they thrive off the crowd, not just the reaction, but the atmosphere, how loud it is. There's people all around you that you can see who the crowd. There's people who you hear in one part of the arena making a certain noise. You hear the vibration of when they're clapping the thunder sticks or they're all banging their feet, or when the music's booming in the place, there's some epic play, they hear themselves reverbing back to they say that's a massive part of the experience and what gets them as excited and passionate. They then cast the games. It's kind of like a feedback loop that they really thrive upon. So even though someone like Deficio's come out and said, it'll still be exciting, and even had problems sometimes in front of a live audience, I'm not buying it personally. I would say overwhelmingly, knowing commentators and talent in other games that do big live events, they would always want to be there for the live event. From my own experiences, both doing a commentary, I did in the early days of CSGO and I did in 1.6, and also being on the analyst desk, when you're at the event itself, when you're in front of that crowd with them all around you, when you can see yourself on the big stage or the big screen or whatever, it's way more epic. It makes the event truly memorable in a way it can't possibly be when you're at home. Because I've also done events remotely. In CSGO, I've done a few events that were remote in terms of the snipe broadcast, where we're just on a couch watching the game. I've also, in 1.6, done actual commentary of even grand finals remotely from Cologne in ESL Studio, when they would have events, for example, the Asian championship that they used to have back in the IEM circuit in CS. And I can tell you, when it's remote, you just watch it like a viewer. Yeah, if the game's epic, you get hyped for it, you enjoy the game, you watch it, you try to react, but it ain't the same as being there. And in fact, that's what you're always thinking when you're remote is, I'm not there though. Fuck, what must it be like to be there? And when I have been there, for big majors, big world championships, the feeling of tension, the moment that the teams just walk out, is always amazing. That's the moment, actually, that maybe hits the highest peak. Yes, in the game, you get an amazing feeling, but a lot of that's from the game and from people's reaction to the game, but it's actually the moment you see the crowd part and the players walk out and they come up to the stage. That is so tense, and that is where the atmosphere really is starting to build to the fever pitch, the cliche that you want in that scenario. Also, I think doing this, quite frankly, sucks for the talent that work all year round and their dream is to cast Worlds. I know that for someone like Froscorin in the past, the dream was A, to get invited to Worlds, and B, if ever possible, to cast a World Semi, a World Final, a massive game that really means a lot. And that's why it's very prestigious within the casting circles to get those gigs. Imagine working all year, especially someone on the NALCS broadcast, and then you're just doing the majority of the tournament. And if you don't do the final, you're just chilling in LA, just watch it from a studio at awkward times of night with some crowd noise pumped in your ear. Oh yeah, that's as good or better or the same. Nah, it ain't. That's fucking whack is what that is. Now, there's also the bigger and more far-reaching implications about what this means about Riot, their esports budget, and where they're headed as a company in terms of running these esports events. Because sure, a lot of this stuff we don't have concrete numbers for, but as my man Dennis Reynolds will always let you know, it's about the implication, isn't it? So remember, this is added to the whole storyline of the world's venues and specific even locations of the cities not being announced until not that long ago. So the whole year we knew South Korea is where it is. That's all we knew. We didn't know what cities it would be in. We didn't know the venues. When the venues did come out, a lot of them, we don't actually know the specific venues yet even, but a lot of the locations, the cities were very underwhelming. Like the final isn't in Seoul, it's in Incheon, which is where the airport is. But okay, people can travel in, but it ain't the same as being in Seoul in a big stadium. Now, I will say, when you watch that video, there's one detail I got critically wrong, which is there are two Gwangjus, and I picked the smaller one when I did the Control F, and it wrecked me. And apparently there's a higher up one that's like top 5 city in Seoul, in Korea. So it's not quite as bad for the semis I made out, but the general gist of the points apply aside from that one detail. Now, there's not only that, where they even admitted themselves that they'd lost their first choice for a venue, which I'm going to go ahead and guess was almost certainly in Seoul, and they ended up with Incheon for the final. Not even a venue in Seoul for the final. Seoul is the mecca of esports and the hub of Korean esports. In fact, it's where nearly all Korean esports are based and take place. Now, add to that, MSI was held in those EU studios, wasn't some massive event again with loads of crowd. Then you had the NALCS Spring Final. So remember, ironically, it used to be that people said that there was bias towards the NALCS, and that was treated as the main broadcast. It was the EULCS that suffered. Well, even the NALCS Spring Finals was only held in a theatre, in a seater that could fit 1,000 people. Only 1,000 people? There's like CSGO events you aren't even heard of that can get 1,000 people to go to them. I mean, I think I've seen literally fan organized, although maybe the team had something to do with it, like fan meetups to watch the Overwatch League in New York City that looked like they had 300 people there. And Riot had 1,000 for their spring finals of one of the biggest splits in one of the major regions. That's really worrying. And again, the implications are, something's going on. They're having to cut costs. They're having to cut back their budget. They can't spend as much as they used to. Maybe there's something with the overall business that's going wrong. Because remember, the esports side used to be propped up by how successful the game was as a business. And obviously, there's the whole Tencent thing. So then you got to throw in, anytime they complain about this, first thing that comes to my mind is crowdfunding. Remember crowdfunding that you ignored that TI's been doing since like TI 3 onwards or something, and you guys haven't been doing it because you said it wasn't needed and it wasn't necessarily you bragging about losing money. Where's all that? I know they do the skins, which make money in League, but they don't do the big crowdfunding in the same way. They also, by the way, unlike other esports games, don't involve third-party tournament organisers. Now, in Dota, their whole Dota Pro circuit, the rest of the tournaments that aren't run by Valve are run by third-party tournament organisers, so they do their thing, they set up the event. Valve gives them half the prize money, but otherwise the third-party tournament organiser wants to be involved in the business, so they're paying some of the costs as well. Riot doesn't have anything like that. They're running everything in terms of the English broadcast and the Western leagues. Then you look at Valve when they're in CSGO. Valve gives some of the prize money and stuff like that for the major in CSGO, but the third-party tournament organizer is also involved and also has to figure out some of the costs and book the venue and make a pitch and a proposal, which, by the way, would be a great solution to the problem that Riot had for Worlds. If you had a third-party tournament organizer organizing it, they would already say, right, I've got this venue booked in Seoul that's really sick. Someone else would say, like, oh, but if I did it, I could actually secure this great venue in China. And what you do is you decide amongst them and go, right, I'm picking you, and they've sorted that all out. You're not having to dick around and do it yourself or hire full-time staff to do it yourself, because remember, Riot supposedly has like 1,500 employees. Why you need that many to run League of Legends? Sure, I'm sure a lot are developing other things, balanced team, but this is too many people. I mean, to get this bad results, that's the part that's kind of worrying. But you know what? There wasn't just this post. Like, this video doesn't stop now and clocking at a nice 10 minutes, which obviously barely any Thorin video ever does. No. What's good is Riot took their usual approach, which is you don't just wait and write a big press release. You get hands-on. You know, you talk to the people. You respond to them like a person. You give them that human touch, right? Well, you know what they did? They had a guy come forward called Thegorm, and he made a post on Reddit, and we're going to talk about that post. Here is the post. I've obviously taken it off Reddit, and I've put it into a very plain format for you to be able to read. So let's go through some of it, shall we? So he starts at the top. Question. Love question and answer format, by the way. Question, because it almost makes you believe he's talking to a human until you see the way he responds. Is Riot cutting back budget on esports? Stop you right there. Wait a minute. Cutting back budget on esports? Okay, I see why you might say that, because people obviously lumped in like the MSI, where MSI was located, the NALCS aspect, the venues. Okay, so I guess generally we do want to know, is it cutting back on esports? But esports is pretty vague, right? Esports covers basically everything, and this is really about what's going on with Worlds. Why is it Worlds being held there? But let's start vague, because you'll see where he's going to go here. So is Riot cutting back on budget on esports? Answer. The answer to this one isn't straightforward, so bear with me. I'm going to go ahead and guess at the beginning that means yes, they are cutting back a budget on esports, or if not esports, on Worlds, or if not just Worlds, on enough aspects of esports that it impacts all these things we care about. And if they did in any way not cut back the budget, that's because they spent more on something you and I don't give a fuck about or know about. And this is a clever way to not say yes when you really mean yes on the things that we care about, because you've already changed the terminology and you're not really answering the question I would ask. I'd ask, are you cutting back budget on Worlds? So let's start there, okay? We spend over $100 million, edit, annually, on esports worldwide, and have for the last few years. I mean, a bit bizarre to put for the last few years when you just said it's annually. I mean, I think you might have made a mistake that you need to edit that, but okay. We've invested a ton into esports since we started hosting Worlds in 2011. Wasn't Worlds in 2011, but okay, it was just the Season 1 Championship, which was just a booth at fucking DreamHack. So yeah, I'm not surprised you've invested a lot more there. And costs have increased dramatically since then, as we've looked for ways to create more awesome local leagues, 14 now, and international events, 4, go to iconic venues, Madison Square Garden, Staples Center, Bird's Nest, etc., and generally look for ways to continue to impress you all and make an esport you can be proud of. Now, we're out of startup mode, in a sense, for esports. In a sense, okay. Instead of just making esports happen and be awesome, we also want to focus on making this a financially sustainable endeavor that can last decades or more. Now, God knows why startup mode has lasted for over half a decade. I mean, he goes back to 2011. So you know what? Startup mode has lasted 7 years. And startup mode continued even when they were making hundreds of millions of dollars and massive revenue. And they had people begging to get involved as sponsors. And teams wanted franchising. And teams wanted sponsorship opportunity. And they turned all that away because they didn't need to, because they were doing it as a marketing exercise. And they were bragging about how we put on esports and we do it at a loss, you know. We just love esports. We want it to be bigger. We don't want to be beholden to sponsors. We want to do it our way. Suddenly all that's changed. And over the years, they've gotten to the point of all the things they should have done from the beginning. So when they launched the LCS, they should have had sponsors from day one, even if they were smaller sponsors, to establish them and build it up. No, they waited for years and years to get proper sponsors. They should have sold broadcast rights early on, whether that was making Twitch pay a premium for the broadcast rights, whether that was even daring for a split to take broadcast rights elsewhere to make Twitch pay more, whether that was having a TV deal like now, which they could have had on a smaller channel years and years ago, much like the UFC worked its way up. So it initially had a spiked deal, then it made its way up, and eventually got like a Fox deal or something, but it didn't have that from day one. They worked their way up. No, Riot was waiting for the perfect deal, because remember, whenever they do something, it's got to be big, it's got to be their vision. They always try to fucking, never mind reinvent the wheel. They don't know there was a wheel, because they ignore all that, and they just try to invent a wheel to begin with, and then take credit for inventing a wheel ages after everyone else has spent 5 years going, please, just use a wheel. Maybe a wheel rather than a square thing on the fucking axle. And they go, we have finally, in our good grace, invented a wheel. You are welcome, sir. Like, fucking hell, it's the standard way with Riot. It's like that. There's an old quote, right, that they often assign or ascribe to Winston Churchill, which if you Google, it's one of those things where, sadly, by having the internet, it removes a lot of the charm around it, because apparently it wasn't Winston Churchill. But if it had been Winston Churchill, it would have been a sick line, because his line was, the USA or America always does the right thing. It just does it last of all. Now, the other version of it, which apparently was by some kind of like Israeli politician or something, was something along the lines of like, men and nations act wisely only after they have exhausted every other opportunity or resource or something, which is kind of the Riot way. They say, no, we don't want to do that. It's our choice not to do that. And you know what? Here's a reason why we wouldn't do that. And we think what we're doing now is good, and we'll definitely take your feedback. And then over time, they inevitably come to all the things we told them to do. Best of 5 series, have seeding in the playoffs. Don't just relegate people in the way that you did before. Let teams have better sponsors, bring in franchising and broadcast. They do everything people were telling them from day one, and that existed in other esports for years. They just do it all after everyone else, and then somehow expect like a fucking fanfare of trumpets and a ticker tape parade for figuring out what we're telling them the whole fucking time. So, okay, then you got to consider they could also have allowed teams to have sponsorships that were bigger, more. They could have had jersey sponsorships. They could have team name sponsorships. No, they blocked some of that stuff early on, didn't allow some of that. And they said, well, you should be grateful. We're paying for esports. We're paying for the salaries of your players. Why should you have the opportunity to make more money? What's that? Oh, Big Daddy Tencent says we need to make more money. We're not viable enough right now. Fuck, all hands on deck. Get sponsors. Get a broadcast deal. Fuck, what's going on with that franchise? Cut the costs on that. Get a venue in Incheon. This isn't going to bloody work. We've got to make the deadline. Like, what's going on here? It's so hypocritical from Riot. So, okay, then consider, because think about this. If it wasn't for the teams pushing back, and it's starting with that letter to fucking Mark Merrill, like 2016 or whatever, there wouldn't even be franchising right now. So esports, in terms of League of Legends esports in the West, will be making even less money and have less opportunities. And I think not only was it the teams pushing it, but knowing what was going to happen with the Overwatch League, which behind the scenes was known and was being pitched to top sports franchises from the traditional sports world, I think that combined with the teams and the fact so many of the teams flirted with implying they were going to get Overwatch League spots is why we even have franchises. So don't let Riot cry and tell you they invented franchising. It was their idea or their vision. It wasn't, as far as we can tell. They were forced into it, and that was the smart compromise they made with the teams, because they managed to retain most of the teams and they didn't go to the Overwatch League. Now, in terms of crowdfunding, why is crowdfunding not being tried properly until now? Yes, they sell some skins, but we don't know if any of that goes. I mean, a bit of that goes to like teams and some of it goes to the prize pool, but it's nowhere near what's going on with Dota 2. So Riot bragged here that it spends $100 million or more every year, right? Valve just held the International 8, a tournament they pay for entirely. And remember, the prize pool of the International 8 was $25 million, and $1.6 million of that was put up by Valve, and the other 23,400,000 came from compendium sales, from crowdfunding for the International. Now, if you know how that works, only 25% of the money raised goes into that prize purse that made the 25 million. So that means something like almost $70 million just went straight to Valve. Now, true, Valve doesn't feature ads on the International. They don't have sponsors in the same way. So sure, a lot of that might cover costs of the expenses, flying the teams up. There's a lot of costs. I've no doubt the budget's high, but I bet they make a good chunk of change as well. And they have a massive prize purse because of that crowdfunding. Riot Games still has a tiny prize pool, sometimes like 2 million, 3 million, nowhere near. And they're complaining about losing money and spending over 100 million. You could have made like 30, 40 million, maybe even profit that could go against your expenses there, just from doing crowdfunding properly. But you've ignored that the whole time. You've diminished that the whole time. You've always wanted to go a different route, because another thing about Riot is they won't do the right thing first because someone else has done it and it's someone else's idea. They always have to find a way to be convinced of it themselves and then convince themselves that it was their idea and someone that they've seen the vision in it. Like, this is one of the things that tilts me about Riot as a company. They don't understand that great quote by Picasso that, like, good artists borrow, great artists steal. When you see someone else doing something amazingly and it's not something specific to them that only they can do, you just take it. You go, right, well, that's the best method. I'm going to do that as well. And then I'm going to succeed and beat that person at it. You don't go, well, he's doing it, so I don't want to be copying him. If you beat him, no one remembers he fucking did it anyway. That's the way shit works. If you actually have confidence you're good at what you're doing. So then you've got to consider, people all say, well, Thorin, when you talk about them losing all that money and Valve making all that, Valve doesn't pay people's salaries. Riot pays all the LCS players' salaries. Okay, first of all, Valve paid half of the prize money for the Dota Pro circuit. Every big major and minor, half the prize money came from Valve. Then you've got to add, so that alone might have been, $15 million? So we're already getting up there in that sense. Then add all the LCS salaries up and tell me it's going to come anywhere close to the 15 million alone. I don't think so, somehow. If you think of the regions that they're covering, how much they're paying, I don't think it's 15 million, if I'm being honest. I don't think they cover China and Korea. I think that's separate, right? Could be the case that they have one in Korea, because I believe they put something in there, but I think Tencent might be in charge of China. So I'm saying no way even for the 15 million, which is what Valve's outputting. But then again, they do crowdfunding. Now, the reasoning in the past, which I always accepted, by the way, I didn't agree with it. I didn't want it to be the case, but I always accepted, right, since the esports side is marketing for the game League of Legends, which are casual plebs, you, your girlfriend and your brother are all playing. Okay, I get that that's the way they're doing it, and therefore they don't want to make too much money off the esports side because they're just focused on it making them more money from the skins and the sales and the turnover and keeping the game fresh. That even makes sense. That's why it's worrying that they're making this pivot now. Because since the key difference between the past and now is Tencent have bought up all the shares, Tencent control everything in theory, although they allow Riot some autonomy, now it's the case that you start to wonder, is Tencent not happy with the sales of the game? Is Tencent worrying if the game revenue is not enough? Or Tencent wants extra revenue made from the esports side as well to justify the esports side on its own merits, not just as an adjunct marketing tool of the game. Because the rumblings already were, as you've seen in some articles, that Tencent already want to pivot away from League, which they feel as though it's like, it's starting to cost too much and it's not making enough, towards the popular games, Battle Royale games, mobile games. So there's already these rumblings that Tencent isn't as happy with Riot, and now Riot's making all these extreme drastic changes. So let's keep going. We're okay with costs continuing to be high because we think the value esports provides to everyone who plays LOL is worth it. But we don't want to continue to be in startup mode. We're now a mature business and costs need to be more in line with revenue in the future. Now that we've built something awesome, we're going to start exercising more discipline around holding ourselves to financial constraints as revenue continues to pick up. This means that we're holding ourselves more accountable to net income targets, as in revenue minus cost, than we have historically. We're a long way from breaking even, revenue minus cost equaling zero. Thanks for explaining that. And we are trying to see if the cost side, there are things we can cut back. If on the cost side, there are things we can cut or scale back that fans don't care about. Got to go ahead and tell you that having the casters on site and having sick venues is something they very much care about, would be near the top of their list. Don't care about, while continuing to invest in the areas fans do care about. Great PR speak, by the way, means fuck all. Doesn't give any specifics, you notice, but great PR talk. Okay, fair enough. But again, as I mentioned, you have to wonder why that is that you're doing that. He built, like, well, we've now built something off. You haven't built shit, by the way. Like, nothing about the cost of Worlds is based on what you built in the past. Okay, you could say you built the team out that work at Worlds, or the broadcast aspect, or you figured out camera aspect. Okay, I could buy that. But a lot of the cost of each Worlds campaign is a fresh cost, and building up things in the past doesn't really change that. Like, that's really misleading, I think, and disingenuous the way that's phrased. Then, as you notice, he says that, they're going to cut back things people don't care about while investing in things they do care about, with no specifics given. But the implication is things like the venue of Worlds, things like having the cast on site are things we apparently don't care about because that's what you're trying out now. When you say that, that's basically the most ridiculous PR speak. It's like me doing a politician, and after thinking about what was said, I will in future be aiming to say the things you do want to hear, but not the things you don't want to hear. So always tell me what you think. Now, that might make people feel good and feel like they're being listened to, but I've actually said fuck all, and I've in no way addressed any of their points, or even suggested the actual changes now and what I've said and done. And therefore, actually, there's no basis to believe what I'm saying. It's just a bunch of waffle, isn't it? I'm sure later, when people say, fuck, where was it? They'll go, we have listened to your feedback and determined that in the future, we will invest more in having the casters on site. And everyone will, oh, round of applause for doing what should have been done from the beginning and was obvious, and you gave no compelling reason as to why you didn't do it. That's just the fucking cycle of the goldfish memory of fucking people on Reddit and in general who are fans of League of Legends, it seems, when it comes to Riot. They love to praise them for doing shit that's so obvious it's unreal. So, okay, let's go to the next part. Regardless, we think increasing revenue will get us much closer to breaking even than simply reducing costs. I don't know why. He doesn't give any reason. Why would increasing the costs revenue... Wait a minute. Yeah, that's the part that doesn't make sense. Increasing revenue will get us much closer to breaking. So if we make more money, that will get us closer to breaking even than spending less. But why? They both get you closer to breaking even. So you're going to have to explain to me how increasing the revenue made is a better approach than reducing costs. Because as far as we can tell here, it looks like you're reducing costs. Okay. So worldwide, we're focusing on increasing revenue. They then put in brackets, hiring key business personnel development, etc. Etc. after one thing. So you're going to hire key business development personnel. I'm with you on that. That'll help you develop the business at lines of revenue, maybe get broadcast deals. What else are you investing in? Etc. Well, no. What would it be though? What else would you need to increase, invest more in to increase revenue that would make it better? And therefore, you wouldn't have to cut costs, even though this is a topic about how it seems quite clear to us that you're cutting costs in some way. Okay, let's keep going. To be clear, the goal isn't to decrease our investment in esports. Not as esports there again. We're not talking about Worlds now. We want to invest even more than we do now in the future, but only if it makes sense for the business and if revenue continues to increase. That's a sentence that started so exciting. We want to invest more. Fucking hell, great. Well, I've got a few ideas. Only if it makes sense. Well, wouldn't that always a company investing more? And if our revenue increases. Oh, so if you make more money, you'll invest more money. Well, fucking hell. It suddenly got way less sexy at the end there, didn't it? I will have, my girlfriend, I will have more sex with you. Fucking hell, brilliant. If you work out and make more money. Oh, fucking hell. Oh, great. I mean, that was to some degree not even worth listening to. So, okay. So let's talk about this. What you basically told me there is you've spent money. You think you should not cut back certain costs. You spent money on other things like hiring more business personnel, etc. And that's why you're spending less in certain aspects. They're actually the only relevant aspects I care about because they're outward aspects. I don't know about the inside of your companies, what's going on. So I can only judge based on things I know about the outside. So it seems like you're spending less on the things I care about and more on things I don't care about in line with what you just said before. You got it the wrong way around there. You see, cart before the horse. So anyway, where's the clear answer here? Did you spend more on this Worlds than last year? Yes or no? It's all right. We get to that later. But you notice he's been very obtuse here. This has nothing to do with our relationship with Tencent. It's something we want to do so that we can last in the long term. Child, please. The company owns the fucking game and you. What, you're telling me they don't get any say about this? You tell me all those reports are nonsense. And even though people say there's friction and say there's problems and say Tencent's wanting to keep a tighter control of the purse strings, you just coincidentally, of your own volition, decided to do basically what would be in line with that being true and would be in line with what a big company running a company like yours that they've bought would be, as opposed to a company running one and just going, haha, let's piss some money up against the wall because we're awesome and we like doing things our way. Haha, startup mode, everyone. High five. It's startup Saturdays. Hand off her ass. That's not allowed anymore. But we're very disappointed that she didn't like it. So, okay, what about this part? By the way, that could well be true, that Riot, Tencent didn't have anything to do with it. I'm just going to go ahead and say, I don't believe you. So, question. I like this when they get sassy. Remember, they wrote the questions. Question. Okay, nice PR talk. So, are you cutting back budget or not? It's the way they're getting sassy, talking to themselves, asking the real question, which should have been question one, after they've just waffled with a bunch of PR for ages. But no, by asking the tough questions and then answering it, see, which is transparent, bro. We're Riot. We're a little startup company with 1,500 employees, and we just talk to the fans, tell them the truth, you know. Tell you fucking nothing, boy. So, it depends. If revenue picks up over the next 3 years, approximately 3 years, our budget can stay the same or increase. If revenue does not pick up enough, our budget will need to decrease by some amount. What I love there is, if it picks up, yeah, enough. What does enough mean? You know, enough. Okay, how long over? Approximately 3 years. What, 3 years? Well, I didn't say 3 years. Could be 2 years. Could be 4 years. Approximately 3 years. If it's just enough, okay, over approximately 3 years, yeah, then what? Could stay the same. Stay the same. What if you make more money? Enough. If you make enough, it stays the same. All right, it might increase as well. Okay, so it'll increase. Well, no, it might just stay the same as well. The fuck is going on here? This is like, in one way, it's a masterclass of saying nothing while appearing like you're saying everything and then patting yourself on the back for actually answering the question that you didn't answer at all. Next one. If revenue does not pick up enough, oh, fuck, it doesn't pick up enough. How much is enough? Well, you know, enough. Well, no, I mean, a lot of money. Is it like millions? Is it 100,000? Well, no, just enough. Well, what is enough? None of your business, okay? It's enough. Anyway, if it doesn't pick up enough, our budget will have to decrease. Oh, fucking hell, it's going to go down. Well, only by some amount. Oh, what do you mean by some amount? By a lot? No. All right, so just by a little bit. Well, I didn't say that. Just some amount, isn't it? So is that going to be a big deal? Well, I don't know yet, do I? It's like, again, could I actually hear something, please? So back into this. This year in particular is a transition year. Oh, love those. Love having the transition year coming fucking 5 years into the project. Brilliant. We're experimenting. Oh, fucking hell. Experimenting nearly always by the mere means. Can't do what I really wanted to do. So I'm doing something a bit weird and trying to be creative with it. And I'm telling the kids that when we go on this 5-hour journey to see their fucking uncle, it's an adventure. Come on, kids. Let's pretend we're on the run from the plate. Like, that's the sort of shit that we're talking about here. We're experimenting with cutting back costs in some places to see how fans feel about it. But we also continue to invest a lot overall. Yeah, I bet you do again. We're cutting back. Oh, fucking hell, you're cutting back. Just in some places. All right. What places are those? The areas that fans probably don't mind. Oh, okay, then I don't mind. Yeah, I thought that. But I'm also going to be investing a lot overall. Oh, cool. A lot overall. Not going to tell you what, though. In fact, this will be the second most expensive Worlds yet. 2017 being the most expensive because of the scale of China. So, okay. Let's just think about that for a second. He's just admitted it, hasn't he? He's just admitted they're cutting back the budget of Worlds from what it was in 2017. It's lower in 2018. Now, it's still more expensive in 2016, 2015, 2014, which, by the way, is good. It's not as good when you've been claiming and you've been putting out graphs showing that your viewer base goes up year on year on year. Your number of players go up on year on year on year. Business is great in League of Legends. In that case, it's kind of whack that it's not the biggest. This is season 8. It should be the biggest ever, right? Increase each year, building up eSports, making it the biggest spectacle. All right, you're going down from last year. So in other words, you've cut the budget. Yes, you have cut the budget. You had a really circuitous, long way of making a lot of points, and eventually you basically answered, and you know what? You are cutting back the budget for Worlds this year. Now, you never made the question at any point in time, you cut back the budget for Worlds this year, because you'd have had to answer yes. But in a roundabout way you did it in a manner where you were like, well, yeah, we have cut back budget for Worlds. Still the second most expensive, though. Well, that's irrelevant if your esports growing. Okay. But, 2017 was just expensive because of China. Okay. So, explain this to me. 2017 was the most expensive because of the scale of China. 2 questions for you. You're going to love these. I noticed you didn't ask yourself these questions. You didn't think to for some reason. You sassy little inner voice. Here's the 2 questions I have for you. 1, if China's so expensive because of the scale, you're not holding it in China, are you? You're holding it in Korea. So why can't yours actually be an amazing tournament with all the bells and whistles on? Because it'll be cheaper. It's in Korea. Even less of an excuse for the budget not to be insane, right? But okay, you mean the budget like we had to spend more than we want to. Okay, I'm with you on that one. Second question. If it's so expensive in China and the scale, you had to move around all these cities. Why move around all the cities? I've got you on that one, haven't I? No one thought to ask you that. Why not do what every CSGO major and the international does? Hold it in one city, in one location for the whole tournament. I know what you're thinking, Riot. I've just invented a wheel and no such thing as a wheel existed, right? Actually, I was just reminding you that a wheel existed elsewhere. Every other cunt's been using it for fucking wheelbarrows, cars, carts and horse, everything. Basically everything. While you've just been sat there going, this square one. I prefer the square one. It's even on all sides, fair and balanced like we are, So, okay, here's the question then. Isn't that the obvious solution? Just host it in one city? Host it at one venue? Get the venue, get a deal on it because you're hiring it for 3 weeks? No, not even any mention of that. Can't even conceptualise that. Funny how these things work. So anyway, they're basically admitted they are cutting costs. In other words, they're cutting the world's budget. They admitted it's less than 2017. Okay. I mean, how could 2017 be afforded if it was so expensive? Why are you having to cut back? Well, nothing to do with Tencent. Who brought Tencent up? No, nothing to do with Tencent. It's my idea. I wanted it to cost less. Okay, why does it cost less? Because China's really expensive. Yeah, but in China you had all the sick venues and all the best cities. Now you've got like reverse venues and way less locations, and you're also hosting stuff from LA. Have you heard how expensive China is, though? Ooh, China this time of year. Ooh, bloody hell. Kill your wallet, it will. Who made the call to cut this back? I mean, we've been told it isn't Tencent, so who is it? I mean, it's not you, the guy writing this. It's probably not any of the people who are speaking publicly. So who is it? Is it some person at the top of Riot? Do they have the vision? What's their experience? No information on that? The bloody sassy guy that's inside your head should have asked the question, shouldn't he? Curses. I've got to become that sassy guy, haven't I? That would be a fucking sick remake. British remake of My Sassy Girl with Thorin. It's called My Sassy eSports Guy. And it's just me being Sundera to every cunt in the fucking building. fucking amazing, wouldn't it? So anyway, you know what that makes me think about the way they've had to cut back the budgets? I think they got wrecked on the venues. I think not only did they fuck up waiting for one specific venue, I think they already were going to cut back, which they've implied anyway. Notice you didn't mention that in the locations thing. In fact, this hasn't been made public until this story's come up through some third-party method of Vidia saying it by accident on stream, and then everyone making it a community topic. Why weren't we told about this if this is your plan from day one, and your big vision, and your strategy for how to make the game more sustainable economically, and increase revenue, and make a real path? But why you never tell us about this until we basically force your hand and you're facing the hot seat, as it were? Makes me think you're getting wrecked all over the place, and this is just some PR to patch it all up, do a bit of damage control, which, fair enough, you did a good job with the PR. A lot of plebs are going to believe this. Right. Let me see. Next part. Fuck, I've just realised I didn't actually have that first part on screen the whole time. Whatever, you heard me read it out. You know what I said, motherfucker. Next question. Oh, by the way, just for that line as well, where it says, we think revenue will pick up and have plans to improve things considerably, it means absolutely fucking nothing to me right now. I mean, just earlier you were telling me you had to hire more people to increase the revenue. So, child, please, I'll wait for you to figure something out before I actually go and believe that. Next question. What's the plan to increase revenue? As though they're going to actually tell us here. Okay, let's just read what they say, shall we? Over time, you'll see the moves we're making to increase revenue with digital experiences, traditional sponsorships, etc. The dreaded etc. that comes in when the guy just has nothing left. Oh, League of Legends is massive. Yeah, in the Westerlund, we've got tournaments like LCS, etc. Like, I love it. We expect that it'll be in ways that at a minimum don't worsen your experience, and at best, even improve it. I love the way they always go with that approach. It's like, we won't be doing the things you don't want to do, but if possible, we will do things you do want to do. How many times is that script going to be played out? Like, it's good PR, I can't lie. Idiots do get tricked by this stuff. But if you're in the industry, you're like, this is just a bunch of nothing. You haven't told me anything there. So... But monetizing esports isn't something that anyone has truly solved. So expect us to experiment. Well, you've solved it the least because you've done fuck all. You waited too many years. You didn't even apparently have the people hired who could do it. You know, you could have looked around the rest of the industry and see how they were doing it, but nah, I haven't bothered with that. We never even get a mention of Dota and crowdfunding in this. That just doesn't exist still for you guys. So basically, you're going to do all the things you should have done years ago because the esports side should have lived on its own, stood on its own 2 feet in the past anyway, should have been able to prove its own merits, should have become a thing in itself, which would have been cool because then you could have balanced aspects of the esports side just for the esports side, not just for the main game, which I think was part of their approach all along. Hence, we all had to be a slave to the dog shit meta and things they do in the main game and how they fuck that up every year. But okay, let's believe that you're going to change things. Next question, right? Why was MSI held in a studio? This is one of the areas where we experiment. I love when they experiment. It seems like experimenting is always when you fuck up and do what everyone told you not to, and then you go, oh, I was just bloody experimenting. But you know what? The results of my experiment are in, and I won't be doing that again, so you don't need to worry about that. But it wasn't your idea and your criticism that told me I was wrong. I experimented and found out that when I put my hand on that stove you told me would burn me because it's hot, you know what? I got fucking burned. So I, as an independent autonomous actor, have learned that stoves are hot and I won't be touching them anymore. Unless you like me to touch stoves. No. I mean, I learned I wouldn't, so I wouldn't. Yeah, that's right. Sorry, I'm on message here. Is that all right, sir? Yes. Okay, thanks. What's that, Mr. Tencent? What else should I tell him? Oh my God, don't mention that you're telling me stuff. That was just a hypothetical of if I had been talking to Tencent. I wasn't. This is all my own words and my decision. I mean, yes. So, okay, let's go back to the next part of it, where we experimented with reducing costs. And based on the response we've seen from you all, we don't want to do an MSI group stage that small again. Yeah, because it took the response to know that that wasn't a good idea. It wasn't that you saved money this year because you needed to because of the budget. You did it as an experiment, but now you've realised no one wants that. No one wanted it from the beginning. No one thought it would work. Didn't work. Was bad. You've not done it. But have you not done it? Because you needed to cut the costs. So you did cut the costs. And now if revenue goes up enough, you might increase it and not do that. Or are you going to promising you're not doing that? It's hard to tell. We do think that small studio settings are appropriate for some stages and will continue to host play-ins in small studios. But groups is one of the most important parts of MSI. Like, did you just learn that this time? Do you have some sort of learning disability? Serious question. As a company, if you were a human, would you have a learning disability? It seems like it. And by the way, I have a learning disability, so fuck off if you think that's somewhat harsh. And we want to put it, speaking about groups of MSI, in a mid-sized venues to help bring the hype, and because we know you care about it. Wait a minute. Did you know after or before this MSI? You knew before. Come on. Stop lying. We're still figuring out some of this as we go. Please keep telling us how you feel about the changes you see. We want to see it to make sure, they had an exclamation mark there, so I have to do it. We want to make sure MSI, Worlds, All-Stars and Rift Rivals are dope spectacles. I even use the word dope myself, but just somehow it is mad cringy when it's written down like that. Are dope spectacles you look forward to every year. Sometimes we'll need to rein in spending on areas. Are you ready again? Should we see if the formula plays out? Are you ready? Sometimes we'll need to rein in spending on areas that we think are less important. Check, there's one. But we want to make sure that we're smart about investing in areas you care about. Check, there's two. Yes, the script still holds true. Venue size is clearly one of them. I mean, he misspelled it there, but whatever, we can forgive him that. And you just figured out that venue size is one of them. Weren't you the guys bragging about being in the Staples Center? We're finally here. Madison Square Garden, Seoul fucking stadium in 2014 Worlds. But you only just figured out now that fans want bigger stage setups. Apparently you didn't. You personally thought it was good to be in a studio for MSI, your second biggest tournament of the year. I don't even believe that. I can believe it if you say you had to cut costs, and if you say, listen, I've got restraints, I don't have as much money to spend anymore, and it has to stand at something. I believe that. I think that's plausible. I don't believe that you really thought it was going to be better than having it in a fucking proper venue. But now you've magically learned in 2018 that your fans want a big venue and a big crowd atmosphere for a big tournament. Child, please, fuck off, lying. It's also suspicious that this happened in line with what happened to the other venues for Worlds. It's also convenient that they care about it, but they didn't do it themselves this year. And they always, again, make out like they're inventing a concept. Like they've only just now learned that you like venues and therefore they're going to hold them in venues. And they've apparently had to experiment with what happens when you don't hold it in a venue. Oh, plot twist, venues are pretty sick. That's why we did it in the first place. Oh, totally beggars belief, doesn't it? Next part. Why was NALCS Spring Final in a 1,000 person venue? He just says, check out what Riot Chopper said about this. It was a link. I don't work on NALCS, so I don't want to speak on his behalf. Well, you know what, my dude? I've got Chopper's statement here. It said, this is actually back in February when they were announcing it. While the Fillmore Miami, may be smaller than some of our previous Spring Finals venues, we believe that might actually be of benefit as we plan for future events. Note that he doesn't actually weigh up the benefits. Like he only says things he thinks are good and he never contrasts. Like he never contrasts. If it was better or you thought it was better, you'd mention why it's better and you'd contrast against what you did in the past where you had it in a bigger venue or with a big crowd. You'd say, I think it's better for this. They don't do that. Get ready. By opening ourselves to considering some of these smaller venues, like the Fillmore, we unlock a lot more unique options, which allows us to reach a broader geographic audience, as well as test out shows in different venue styles for spring finals. That is just word salad. At least the guy before, who wasn't being very transparent, he's using PR speak, at least I understood vaguely what he meant, even if he didn't give specifics. I don't know what most of this means. By opening ourselves to considering some of these smaller venues, okay, I'm with you, considering smaller venues, we unlock a lot more unique options. Like what? Which allows us to reach a broader geographic audience, right? Broader geographic audience. So they can already reach everyone in the world in terms of geography. So presumably it doesn't mean like we can reach Iceland and Antarctica. No, presumably he means broader. So I would assume he means something like have like families attend the event, or I honestly don't know. I've only been in esports for like 17 years or something professionally, and I still don't know what any of those words mean. And as far as I know, English is my native language, and I'm actually considered fairly fluent in it. As well as test out shows in different venue styles for Spring Final. Again, test out, so that's kind of like experimenting. I get that you did something different. I know you want to reword that as like experimenting, testing out. No, you just did something different. It wasn't very good and it was worse. Then he goes here. Additionally, the smaller venues offer a different fan experience for those in attendance and those online. The fans will be closer to the action and feel more a part of the show, and those at home should notice that as well. Yes, it does give a different fan experience. A worse one, unless you're going to give me reasons as to why that's not the case. Finals of a big event, LCS should still be a big event, are about the spectacle. They're about it being epic. That actually contributes to making the games potentially better, because then the best competitors come out to play. It's like they say in the NBA, the stars come out to play when the spotlight's on them, when it's the playoff match. By making it a smaller venue, it gets less competitive. It gets so that actually underdog teams can win more easily. We see this, it's happening in CSGO. In the early days, we used to have a tournament called ESEA LAN that was just a LAN held in like a hotel basement or something, where it had almost no spectators and all the teams played in the tournament area the whole time. No big stage setup. It was way more likely there were upsets, and NA teams, who were the worst teams at the time compared to top Europeans, generally did way better at these tournaments than they did in Europe. It actually makes for a worse esports competitive environment to have a small venue in that sector. The people don't get nervous as much. The big players don't come out as much to play when they're on the big stage as when they're on the big stage. Now, did Madison Square Garden suck due to the fans not being closer to the action and feeling more a part of the show? Nah, it was fucking awesome. It's considered one of the best League of Legends events ever held. Staples Center, ditto. People thought it was amazing. Bird's Nest, likewise, amazing shit. It was the opposite of all these factors that made those awesome, but no explanation as to why that is. I love the part where he tries to imply that the online audience is going to enjoy this more, that they're going to notice that it's a really small venue with the crowd really close to the stage, and somehow they're going to get more hyped from that. They're not going to want to see a huge spider shot swinging across a massive venue, all the crowd, different cheering section. They're going to enjoy it more watching some people in seats just be near to the stage. Why would they enjoy that more? It's less hype, isn't it? Right, let's go back. Oh no, there's the last part to it, sorry. It's definitely going to be a more intimate show at spring finals moving forward, in contrast to summer finals, where we will look primarily at the bigger venues in North America. Will be more about the excitement that comes from a larger crowd. I'll give this guy credit on this last part. That's not bad spin, because there you're selling it that, listen, we're doing both. And in fact, we want to make a unique feel for spring so it's different to summer. Even though I don't agree with it, I still think it's bullshit. I will give you credit. That's not a bad way to sell it. That's a good way to phrase it and spin it, actually. Use a different approach for both. Hey, variety, the spice of life, right? I will say, though, the flaw of what you're thinking about there is, right, aside from qualifying for Worlds, where you do want there to be a bias in terms of circuit points for summer, you don't want there to be a bias in terms of the splits. You want every split to feel uniform, so if I win 5 splits, it doesn't matter, you just won 5 spring splits where it was in a tiny stadium. All right, and he won 3 summer splits where it was in front of a massive crowd. Yeah, that is better. You want the bias to be equal. You want spring and summer in that sense to be similar. You don't want it to be like, well, spring's just the tune-up one, and who cares that we lost that one? Summer's the real one in the big stadium. You've now devalued the fucking spring split, haven't you? So anyway, now that we've read that bullshit, let's go back to the statement, okay? So, there we go. Last part. Will Riot English casters go to Korea for Worlds? I wonder. Yes. Oh, Lord. I think the guy who wrote this is one of those fact checkers on Snopes. Because famously on Snopes, they'll do something like, they'll go like, did this extremist kill 8 people in this building? And they'll be like, fact check, false. He only killed 6 people in the building, 2 people when they left the and it's like, come on, man. You know someone's going to skim that and say it's false and not read all the details, and you're just trying to spin it. So will Riot be sending the casters to Korea for Worlds? Yes. Well, you're technically right, they are. What, only for one of the fucking series? The majority of it, no. In that case, overwhelmingly, if you're talking about the overall thing, you should say no. But he says yes, for some stages. No, nearly all the stages. Nearly all of them, my dude. Why have we got less precise on things that you are being precise about in terms of the actual information elsewhere? This is an area where in the past, we actually didn't have a reasonable way of doing broadcast production from LA for the English feed. We've made some technological improvements, and we can do that now. And we think that we can do it in a way where you'll still feel the energy and hype that comes from the casters on site. You won't. I've just told you why. I've told you what casters who have an independent opinion and don't have Riot breathing down their necks say. And also, the idea that, like, because you've improved the technology, now you can do this. Again, spinning it as a positive is such a crock of shit. Why say elsewhere that you're having to cut costs and increase the revenue to be able to have the biggest spending for Worlds ever, if actually it's because you've improved technology? Now you can do it in a a much better way. It can't be both. We have to save money and increase revenue, but also this is better anyway. And actually, there's technology in that. What, don't you like progress? What, you don't like technology in that? Fucking Luddite. Come on, man. You can't be both at the same time. This is a hypothesis, though. Let's see how you feel about it after you see how Worlds is executed this year. Riot love just doing stuff. Who can know whether this is going to fail? Well, actually, all of eSports tells us this isn't as good. No, but let's see if we do it first and then see how it goes. It goes badly. We've seen now that it goes badly, which we definitely couldn't have known before. You could. I told you that was obvious. In fact, there was no compelling reason to do it. No, but we had to experiment. It was just a hypothesis. No, actually, the full theory and practical work and experimentation was done in other esports games and your own esports game. No, but I had to test it out, because of the new technology and change. So anyway, it is something of an experiment in reducing cost. Yeah, we know that's the real reason why. Why do you spin all the technological aspect? As Rumble Stew mentioned, we've done it on several non-English broadcasts without fans seeming to mind. Don't give a fuck. Not non-English, not someone watching the non-English broadcast. I would imagine some non-English broadcasts have to take what they can get. And did all those non-English broadcasts actually have on-site, which they then compared, and they thought it was better because of the technology? I don't know about all that. Seems a bit vague, doesn't it? Seems like you're kind of making a red herring there that doesn't have anything to do with the English broadcast and what our expectations are, because we've seen you on-site every fucking Worlds. Every fan base is different, though. Yeah, exactly. Why are you referencing the other one then? Well. So let us know what you think after this year's Worlds. We're letting you know now, mate. But okay. We can't promise changes, so even if we let you know, you might just go, thank you for your... The McDonald's Corporation thanks you for your feedback. We will take this into consideration when planning for our future year. Put that in the fucking bin. We can't promise change. Oh, well. Cool. What, even if the technology doesn't sound like that good and the hypothesis fails, you can't promise you'll change? Don't know why you're telling me that then. But we can promise that we'll pay attention. Yeah, because that costs fucking diddly squat and doesn't require you to do anything. I could also pick up a newspaper, read it and go, well, delete all that from my brain and that goes in the bin. Doesn't mean I've actually done anything, does it? So the end of this, by the way, was just a bullshit PR answer and was fucking terrible. So anyway, I've gone through my points mostly there. I didn't make this. I actually thought, should this be like Thorin versus Riot's PR? Because I've done that for some of like the H2K breakdown, etc. But actually, this video was more about my general thoughts. And then this was a side topic that I went into the PR. But it was obviously clearly a bunch of bullshit. Even though it was funny, it made me laugh. So it did have some benefit in that particular sense. This video was kindly supported by Dean Tanglis, Gardner Wilson, Andreas Snazore Westerlund, Alex Adams, Eddie Wingfors, Daniel Yordanov, Robert Baxter, Travis Greb, Kyla Harris, James Harding, Caesar, and special thanks go out to Matt Shakowski and Jerky's Minion in particular. Want teasers for my upcoming content? How about asking me a question for my monthly AMA? Do you want to take part in a discussion about esports with me? How about suggesting a topic or a guest for my content? Put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today.